Crisis doesn't define you. Your response does when fire rains from the sky and the ground shakes with uncertainty. It's easy to let fear dictate your identity. But understand this, crisis is not your identity. It's only your current circumstance. In moments of overwhelming pressure, people begin to believe that their environment has the power to label them. But environment only reveals, it doesn't define. Your true identity is not forged by the chaos around you. It's revealed by how you respond to it. Let's take this to a deeper level. A nation under attack does not become weak simply because it's targeted. A person facing hardship doesn't become broken just because life delivered a blow. What separates victors from victims is not what happened to them, but what they chose to do next. The battlefield of life is not only in the Middle East, it's in your mind, your house, your business, your faith. And in every single battle, you're being asked one question. Will you react in fear or respond with faith? See, a reaction is automatic, it's emotional, it's impulsive, but a response is intentional, it's strategic. It's rooted in principle, not panic. That's why you see two people facing the same crisis. One falls apart, the other rises up. The fire didn't change, the war didn't shift. What changed was the posture of the person. The problem is that we've been trained by culture to internalize crisis. We say things like, "I'm under attack," and we start to wear it like a badge, but being under attack doesn't mean you're losing. It means you're a threat. It means your potential is too powerful to be ignored. And this is where your identity must be louder than your instability. You've got to decide in advance who you are, so that when the heat rises, your decisions stay consistent. Your response is the seed of your outcome. It's the steering wheel of your future. The world may try to define you by your lowest moment, but your legacy will be written by how you moved when everything was against you. When you respond with faith, clarity, courage, and strategy, you transform crisis into a catalyst. You don't need the storm to stop. You need the storm to see who's still standing. Chaos is the breeding ground for clarity. Most people run from chaos because they've been taught that disorder is dangerous, that noise is distracting, and that movement without direction is meaningless. But those who understand the rhythm of purpose know something deeper. Chaos doesn't destroy clarity, it reveals it. There's something about pressure, something about unpredictability, that forces you to confront what really matters. In a world full of comfort, it's easy to be distracted by the trivial, but when the noise gets louder and the options become fewer, decisions become sharper, priorities rise to the surface like gold in a furnace. You don't discover who you are in peace. You discover who you are in war. You don't become focused when everything is going right. You become focused when everything is falling apart and you still have to move forward. Chaos strips away the unnecessary. It exposes what's weak and magnifies what's strong. It doesn't ask for your opinion. It demands your attention. And it doesn't give you a map. It gives you a mirror. That's why some people collapse in chaos while others are carved by it. Because clarity isn't gifted. It's extracted through challenge. When a nation is surrounded, when missiles are flying overhead, when people are questioning their future and their faith, that's not the time to guess who you are. That's the time to know. Chaos forces decisions you've been postponing. It pushes you into conversations you've been avoiding. It accelerates growth you've been delaying. And whether you're leading a household or defending a homeland, clarity becomes your most powerful weapon. Don't be fooled by the noise. The enemy wants you distracted. Confusion is always a part of the enemy's arsenal. But those who walk with purpose understand that chaos doesn't drown the prepared. It awakens them. Because when everything starts shaking, it becomes very clear what can stand. When the predictable is taken away, the purposeful begin to rise. That's why in times of great conflict, we often see the emergence of great leaders. It's not because they suddenly became powerful. It's because the fire exposed what had always been dormant. They didn't panic, they positioned themselves, they didn't retreat, they remembered who they were, because chaos, while loud, is also honest. It shows you what matters, what lasts, and what's next. Nations rise or fall based on leadership integrity. The strength of a nation is not measured only by its military arsenal, technological prowess, or the size of its economy. The true weight of a nation is revealed in the integrity of its leadership. Leadership is not just about holding a position or issuing commands, it's about the character behind the choices, the values that shape the vision, and the courage to uphold truth even when pressure to compromise is overwhelming. In times of peace, poor leadership can hide behind policy. But in times of war, every weakness, every lie, and every selfish agenda gets exposed under the heat of crisis. That's when you see what's real and what's rehearsed. A leader with no integrity will trade the safety of the people for the security of their position. They'll say what's popular instead of what's right. They'll protect their image rather than fight for their people. But a leader who walks in integrity will stand even if they have to stand alone. They will speak with clarity when the crowd is confused. They will move with purpose even when the path is dangerous, because to them, leadership is not about control, it's about responsibility. When nations burn, people look for more than power, they look for principles. They look for someone who won't waver when everything else is falling. The people don't need perfection, they need direction. They don't need hype, they need honesty. Leadership without integrity is like a ship without a rudder. It might move, but it has no destiny. It's not storms that sink nations, it's the holes in their leadership. It's not enemies that destroy them, it's the betrayal within. Because a house divided by compromise cannot stand united in battle, this is why integrity is not a luxury in leadership. It's the foundation. It's what gives your words weight and your decisions authority. Integrity isn't about being flawless, it's about being faithful. It's choosing conviction over convenience, even when it costs. It's staying grounded when power tries to elevate you beyond accountability. A leader without integrity will lead people into confusion, but a leader who carries truth will always point toward stability, even if the road to it is hard. When leaders lead from ego, nations suffer. But when leaders lead from integrity, nations rise even in the face of war, even under attack, even when the world says it's impossible. Because integrity is more than a moral compass, it's the fireproof foundation that holds everything else together. When the shaking begins, fear is a weapon. Faith is a shield in the middle of conflict. In the thick smoke of uncertainty, fear always shows up first. It moves faster than missiles, spreads quicker than fire, and infects deeper than wounds. Fear is the invisible weapon the enemy uses to destabilize nations before a single bullet is fired. It paralyzes progress, confuses judgment, and magnifies threats until they seem bigger than truth itself. But what most people fail to recognize is that fear is not just an emotional response, it's a tool. And those who seek control know how to wield it with precision. If they can get the people to fear, they don't need to fight them, because fear makes people surrender long before they ever see the battlefield. Fear causes people to forget who they are. It disconnects them from their identity and distorts their perception of reality. It will take a strong man and make him second, guess his calling. It will take a confident leader and make her question her authority. Fear doesn't knock down walls, it convinces people to build their own prisons. That's why fear is never about the facts, it's always about the focus. Whatever you focus on will grow, and fear's strategy is to get you to focus on the worst case scenario until you make it your identity. But here's where the shift begins. Faith is not the absence of fear. It's the decision to rise above it. Faith does not ignore the facts. It simply refuses to let the facts have the final word. Faith looks at the same missile, the same headline, the same siren, and says, "You may shake the world, but you won't shake my belief." Faith is not fragile optimism. It's a decision to anchor your soul when everything else is moving. Faith doesn't make things easy, it makes you stronger. It builds resistance against the invisible attack. It silences the inner panic. It trains your mind to respond with strategy, not survival. And while fear spreads like wildfire, faith builds like a fortress brick by brick, word by word, truth by truth. When fear is the weapon, faith becomes the shield that stops it cold. It doesn't stop the noise, but it gives you the power to move through it. It doesn't guarantee immediate safety, but it guarantees you won't collapse under the weight. Faith reminds you that your future is not in the hands of men, missiles, or media headlines. It's rooted in something eternal, unshaken, and unbreakable. In times of war, purpose becomes clear. There are moments in life when the noise of everyday distractions gets silenced not by peace but by pressure. War strips away the illusion of safety and forces people to face what truly matters. When conflict erupts, when families are displaced, when lives are threatened, the masks fall off and the truth of a person's purpose comes into full view. You can't fake clarity when everything is on the line. War removes the luxury of indecision. It accelerates conviction. It forces people to choose sides, not just politically or nationally, but spiritually and morally. Purpose becomes more than a vague concept. It becomes a personal mission. You start to realize that comfort has been lying to you. It told you that you had time. It told you that tomorrow was guaranteed. It told you that playing small was wisdom, but when the bombs drop and the sirens wail, comfort is nowhere to be found, and all that remains is the call you've either answered or ignored. War awakens the soul. It reminds you that you were never built just to survive, but to lead, to protect, to build, to influence, and to stand for something that transcends your own interests. Purpose is not something you discover in theory. It's something you walk out in adversity. It's forged in fire, not fantasy. And that's why, in times of peace, many people wander aimlessly, because they've never been forced to ask the hard questions. But war changes that. It makes the questions louder and the answers urgent. Why are you here? What are you willing to fight for? Who are you willing to protect when you go quiet after B or taken for granted? When you see buildings collapse and families cry, you realize the value of your voice. When you witness injustice, you either become numb or you rise up. There's no middle ground in moments like these. War won't let you be neutral. It pushes you to the edge and makes you choose whether you will fade or focus. And the people who once lived in hesitation suddenly move with precision, not because the world got easier, but because their purpose got louder. When the stakes rise, the fog lifts. When the threat is real, the calling becomes urgent. You don't wonder what your gift is. You start using it. You don't wait for a platform, you become the platform. You don't ask for permission, you walk in conviction. Because in times of war, purpose is no longer optional. It's essential. You were born for this hour. Act accordingly. There are seasons in life when existence feels routine, when the days blur together, and the urgency of purpose seems far off. But then come the moments that shake history, moments when the world shifts, when nations collide, when peace turns to peril and every breath feels like a decision. In those moments, people start looking for someone to blame or someone to follow. But the truth is, no matter who you are or where you stand, you were not placed in this moment by accident. You were born for this hour, and that is not poetic exaggeration. It is divine design. Everything you've survived, everything you've struggled through, everything you've questioned has been preparation for the position you now occupy. You were not meant to sit silently while the world unravels. You were not created to merely consume content and complain about the chaos. You are here in this generation with these challenges for a reason. This hour demands more than commentary. It demands contribution. And the contribution required isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's as simple as standing with conviction, speaking when others stay silent, and showing up with strength when the world expects fear. The idea that history is made only by the powerful is a lie. History is shaped by the obedient, by those who understand that legacy is not built in comfort, but in commitment. You don't have to have a microphone to be a messenger. You don't need a title to walk in authority. Your very presence in this hour is evidence that purpose is calling. The question is not whether you were chosen. The question is whether you will respond. Acting accordingly means shifting your mindset from passive observer to active participant. It means guarding your thoughts, disciplining your actions, and choosing alignment over approval. It's recognizing that darkness increases not just because evil is bold, but because good people stay silent. You don't get to outsource this moment. You don't get to wait for the perfect conditions. This is the hour, and you are part of the answer. The war may be physical on one level, but it's deeply spiritual underneath. That means your presence, your prayer, your posture. They matter more than you think. It's not about having all the answers. It's about having the willingness to act in alignment with who you were created to be in a time when clarity, courage, and truth are more necessary than ever in times like these, when the skies are filled with fire, when fear floods the streets, when the very ground of nations trembles beneath the weight of conflict. Every excuse is stripped away. You see, war doesn't just test armies, it tests identities. It reveals what was hidden. It demands that each one of us decide who we are, what we stand for, and what we're willing to do about it. Crisis doesn't get to define us, our response does, and when chaos rises, it's not there to confuse you, it's there to clarify your calling. This is not a time for hollow leadership or hollow living. This is a time when integrity either rises to the surface or gets crushed under the pressure. And when fear tries to infect your heart, you've got to raise the shield of faith, not as some nice idea, but as a spiritual weapon. Because in this moment, the battle is not just on the ground. It's in the mind, in the soul, in the spirit. And when purpose shows up under fire, that's when history gets written. That's when generations shift. That's when legacies are born. This is not just Israel's war. This is not just Iran's strike. This is not just global politics. This is a wake-up call for every person walking in denial, delay, or distraction. The hour is late. The stakes are high, and the calling is loud. You were born for this. You were born for fire. You were born to lead, to rise, to speak, to protect, to build, and to believe in the face of impossible odds. So now is not the time to sit back. Now is not the time to look away. Now is the time to remember who you are and move like it.